Hey, and a very warm welcome to the Into the LightWeb podcast with me, your hostess, Joanna Hunter, metaphysical teacher, spiritual life and business coach, published author, and the high priestess of the LightWeb, a spiritual technology that will change your life. This is the place to be to talk everything under the LightWeb, from consciousness, relationships, to money, to spiritual business, and everything in between. Hi, and a warm welcome to the Into the LightWeb podcast with me, your hostess, Joanna Hunter. And today I have got another wonderful client story, and I am joined by the wonderful Eileen Bennett. Eileen, come and introduce yourself and tell people what it is that you do in the world.
Yeah, I am Eileen Bennett, as Joanne said. I'm in the west of Ireland, in Galway, where the sun is shining for the first time in a very long time. It's not raining. It's always a celebration when it's not raining in Ireland, or especially in the west. Yeah, so I feel that I'm on a mission to transform the world from the inside out, and that's been a mission since I was as long as I can remember. I kind of lost track of it for about 60 years, but I'm back on it now. Yeah. Um, I'm a mother and a grandmother and an animal lover, and I work a lot with horses and people with either mental health challenges or physical or the challenges through horses.
Amazing,
Yeah.
amazing. Tell us a little bit about how you first found us and how you first kind of entered my world.
Yeah, I was introduced by my good friend Liz, who is no longer with us, and she came across you and said, "You're going to like this lady," um, because we kind of like similar things, and we were on a similar path. And she was right. I just loved the teachings when I came across them and couldn't get enough of them. And it was all the free stuff back then that I was really only able to manage, but I just soaked it all up. And
Amazing.
yeah,
So was the first thing you found the $1 Million Experiment, or was it like the actual free content that you first kind of came to, like my master classes and things like that?
yeah, it was the free stuff. And as soon as I looked at your website and I said I wanted to do Deepak at some point, but it wasn't in my reach at the time. So yeah, it was the free stuff in the beginning, all the free stuff. And then the first paid thing I did was my $1 Million Experiment, the first time I did it.
Amazing,
Yeah.
amazing.
And even
Um,
and that was a stretch at that time to have to spend, I think it was $25.
$25.
Yeah.
I love that you say that that was a stretch, because that's where I was at back in the
Yeah.
day. Like I was in the same place where $25 was like, hang on, let me think about this.
Yeah.
I really had to kind of think about, did I really want to spend that money? And it was a kind of like, what would need to be sacrificed?
Yeah.
Like were we going to be doing beans on toast? That kind of situation.
That's
Um,
exactly it. Yeah.
it sounds like things have changed, which is amazing. But tell us a little bit about the journey that you have been on through your own kind of business and things like that as well. How has, in the last sort of 3 years, or it's maybe like 3 or 4 years, how
Yeah.
have things began to sort of change for you mindset wise and things?
Yeah. The major changes have been mindset wise, not yet money wise. My attitude to money though has changed dramatically. And so I was able to do, I think, first the temple and then LightWeb and now Deepak. And it's still a stretch, but I'm doing it. Which is amazing. But the mindset changes were like you can't be a millionaire with a poor mindset. So I had so much mindset stuff to shift and still do. I'm still going through it. I have silenced myself and buried myself, as I said, for over 60 years, and that all has to be uncovered.
And unpacked, right?
Unpacked, yeah.
Tell
And
us a
that's
bit about that, silencing yourself and kind of burying yourself. Like that's a very interesting thing, because I think a lot of people maybe listening to this can relate to that. I did that as you know, I was born with my spiritual gifts switched on, and I did that when I was much younger. I did that around about the age of 9. I had managed to suppress most of my spiritual gifts, and hide them. Unfortunately for me, things ended up a bit like a shook champagne bottle. So by the time I was 15, my spiritual gifts literally were bursting out of me, which was very awkward for a 15-year-old. But tell us your story of, because I think a lot of people experience maybe spirituality as a child and then start to suppress that down.
Yeah. I was always the weird kid. I just knew stuff and just knew things that I shouldn't have known. And my dad, who was quite a spiritual man as well, he really got it and he encouraged me. Um, and then when I was 7, he died suddenly. So then the kid, being the kid who knew stuff, wasn't really acceptable anymore. So that's when I started to bury it, because I heard once, and I'd ask Eileen, she knows everything, and it was said in a derogatory way. And so I said, oh God, maybe I'm not supposed to know everything. So I stopped knowing
Mm.
things. Um, I could still tell you, like it even happened recently when, like, if I'm in a strange city and somebody says, "Do you know where the library is?" I'll know where the library is because I've just passed it and I can give them directions. So I still know things, but I had suppressed the deeper knowing, the spiritual knowing.
Mm.
Really, I think until there was a brief respite of it in my late teens when I was part of what was then called the Charismatic Renewal Movement, which was a Christian movement, and like we had light language and we had things like that, but it was um, I always felt it was contained in in Christianity, and there was something much bigger than it there, and it was never
Yeah.
released. So I closed it all down again, and really until I came across you, did I start to open it again. And now I'm seeing more and more people beginning to open, and it feels like someday there's going to be like a flash mob of people. Everybody's sitting having their coffee on the street, and all these people are going to appear out of nowhere and start growing or ascending. And it'll be people who don't look like me, maybe like ordinary looking little old ladies who are going to suddenly the world will realize that there's more to us than meets the eye.
I love that. I love that. I pray for that day because I
Yeah.
really do. Skylar teaches that we will reach a point, everything will reach a point of critical mass, and these creates giant shifts in consciousness, global shifts in consciousness. When enough people, we don't need everybody on the planet to believe a certain thing, or we don't need everybody on the planet to work on their vibration. Because we are all one when it comes to the energy, it only requires a certain number of people before we reach that critical mass. So I love the idea of a flash mob. I mean, yeah, let's bring on the dancing in the streets and the I love that vision that you have. And tell us, in unpacking all of this, um I imagine sometimes when we begin to unpack all of this, there's a big relief, but there's also, I know from my own personal experience, there was like perhaps like a grieving process for the fact that we listen to other people. Does that make sense to you?
Yeah, I haven't got to the grieving process part of it yet, because I'm still saying, oh my God, I believe that and I believe that, and I can do this. I'm still unpacking is a good word for it. Do you know that story about the little bird who was flying happily somewhere, and it got very cold and he ended up on the ground and then he froze,
Yes,
and then
yes, yeah.
he thought, and then the
The
cow came and
perspective story, yeah.
yeah, and the cow came and crapped on him, um,
Yeah.
and warmed him up again, and he started to sing. So I'm at the warming up again stage. I think that's where I am. I've been frozen and life has shit on me.
Well, let's
Yeah,
hope that the cat does not come along.
yeah, no, we'll leave out the cat
No,
bit.
we'll
Yeah,
leave the cat
yeah,
alone there.
yeah.
Um, I feel, yeah, I mean, going through this process of unpacking, and realizing, and it is that revelation, isn't it? It's that
Mm,
revelation of like, oh, I'm not mad. Oh, that's
mm.
not all in my head. Oh, it's that kind of really feeling, I think, of finally realize, because I think nobody gaslights you like you gaslight yourself.
Yeah, that's very true.
You know, like I had to take that radical personal responsibility and realize that for years I had gaslit myself. And Skylar has this beautiful lesson of something has got to give. And in that lesson, it's like, you know, are you going to trust or you're not going to trust? Well, if you're going to trust, then something's got to give, and it's got to be you that does that giving, that gives yourself the trust, that gives yourself the, okay, I'm going to trust this voice in my head, if you like.
Mm.
Um, and it's not always the easiest path to walk. It's not always the easiest energy. And I just feel like nobody gaslights you the way that you gaslight yourself, you know, when
Yeah,
it comes to this spiritual stuff.
definitely.
Um, Tell us what it's been like getting back to a truer version of you, as you're unpacking all of this. Has there been shifts within your own self of feeling kind of more at ease with yourself?
Yeah, it's been humbling. Like my ego has had to take quite a hit again and again. Like when I came into your world first, I thought, well, we're very alike and we know the same stuff. But then I realized it's not. You know that you're several what's the word I'm looking for? You're much more evolved than I am at this stage, but I'll get there eventually. And so having to admit to that I had so much more to learn than I thought I did, that's been quite humbling. And it's been sort of like going back. I have to go back to that 7-year-old child and
Mm,
remember her and
yeah.
honor what she had at that time, and then bring it forward. And I've heard a lot about inner child work, but I didn't really, never really wanted to look at it, um, because my inner child is probably not very happy. But actually, she still is quite happy. This didn't really affect her very much. What the fact that the ego part of me, the human part of me, buried her.
Mm,
She's just been sitting there waiting to be found again. So
I love that. I
yeah,
love that. I think that's probably one of the biggest ego lessons is to allow yourself to be the student.
yeah,
Well, I know myself.
yeah,
That didn't always come easy because
mm,
I wanted to be the one, you know, like I
yeah,
wanted to know a lot of things and things like that. And I do know a lot of things, but at the same time, it's been a very humbling experience to allow myself to be the student.
yeah,
And it's not always easy. And not everybody like you, Eileen, manages it. Not everybody manages it because some people, that ego is sitting so strong that they don't allow for um for the scope to be the student.
yeah,
And I am sure that there's many, many places in this life where I could learn a ton from you and
mm,
that you know more than me. And then there's places where my study has been just longer,
yeah,
basically, more than anything.
yeah,
But I love that you're saying about the 7-year-old and it's about the remembrance because I have this theory that I don't really teach anything.
yeah,
I help people to remember what they already instinctively know, to uncover and remove all of that stuff. Because what I really believe is that I teach is soul truths. And I really fundamentally believe that everybody has a soul. And therefore, what I help to uncover is all the debris that we stick on top of the soul
yeah,
that hides its light from us and hides the miracle that it is. And is that remembrance of remembering our soul's truth in a way. And I feel for Skylar, you know, for me, Skylar, that's what Skylar has done for me is I remember now, you know,
mm,
whereas before I had put a lot of debris on top, a lot of debris on top, and my ego sat on the top of that whole heap
yeah, yeah,
and defended it vehemently.
yes.
And now I remember a lot more of my inner truth, and I think everybody carries this inner truth, and that's I think why a lot of people when they're in my world, they say, "Oh my God, your teachings hit differently." And I think I'm just giving you back a part of yourself that you might have lost,
Yeah,
you
yeah,
know, and helping you to find or light the way or illuminate the way back. But we have to all do the work ourselves to bringing that in and bringing that forward. Tell us a little bit about your vision for your work in this world, because, obviously you work with these horses, you work with people who are maybe going through mental health things.
yeah,
Tell us a little bit about your vision for your work, because I love what you do in the world.
yeah. That's one part of my world. The other part is I called myself an empowerment coach until recently when I realized that actually I can't empower anyone. All I can do is give people the tools and resources to empower themselves. So
Yes,
I'm totally changing my content on that.
I
Um,
love that. I
yeah,
love
and yeah, that's been another journey, like unpacking because I have loads of content on empowering and how you can, so so I suppose my dream would be I would love to run retreats with the horses on what's called, well, we're only actually starting one on Friday, a 4 week mini course called Me Power, and it's for women. Um, and they're going to work through the horses on finding the way to empower themselves.
that.
And I'm using the content that I'd written. So let know how it goes. But yeah, and then but the reason we're doing this as a 4 part mini course is to see would it work as a retreat, a longer retreat, because that's been my dream for a long time to run a retreat.
I love that. I
Yeah,
love the idea of me power. I
yeah,
think that is what it is, right? That is what true empowerment is.
yeah,
Coming to that realization that empowerment is not something that somebody else can give you. And I think, unfortunately, in the industry, there's a lot of people that kind of, I will empower you, as
exactly.
opposed to, I will help you to illuminate the path to your own, and you said it perfectly, me power.
Yeah, I just flipped the
I
first two
think.
letters. It was just, I woke up one day and said, that's what it should be called. Yeah, it was one of those. I said,
Oh, I love
empower
that.
for
I
me.
love that.
Yeah,
And I love that you're starting to explore this idea. And it's like building up to it, right? It's like law of increments.
yeah,
Build little by little, we get there. And it's just that one foot in front of the other. I also love the fact that you're using a 4 week course.
yeah,
I think one of the things that we have to acknowledge in this modern world is that people are very busy.
mm, yeah,
And although people do desire the knowledge and they do want these things, it's very difficult sometimes to say, can you commit every week for 6 months? That's a lot for human beings in today's modern world. And I think what's really beautiful is the fact that you've created a thing that has a beginning, a middle, and an end. It's 4 weeks. I think most people can look at their diaries and be like, yes, I can be part of this. And I can give that gift to myself because that's what it is. It's giving that gift to yourself, isn't it? And
mhm,
choosing yourself. And I think choosing yourself as women, it's a very difficult thing sometimes because we're almost brainwashed, aka conditioned into having to put everybody else first.
yeah,
And I think that's one of the biggest issues, isn't it? In uncovering when we're going to like on that journey of unpacking and uncovering
yeah,
is realizing we didn't make it to our own priority list. I know that
yeah.
that was a huge thing for me. How did that affect you? Did you have a kind of realization of like, oh man, I've maybe
Yeah.
not made it to my own priority list?
Oh yeah, I get reminded of that all the time. I think because we're natural born helpers, and people are
Hmm.
drawn to us, and it feels like against our nature to turn people away.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's really I've had to learn boundaries big time. Health to build strong, healthy boundaries, and even still, they get pushed um, because I'm a very good listener, um, and people feel that I have a calmness to offer or something, that I'm a safe place to offload, but I need to also look after myself.
Yes.
Yeah, and that's you can't do any of this work unless you look after yourself.
No.
It's like it's a cliche, but you really can't pour from an empty cup.
It is a cliche, but it's so, so true. I
Yeah,
mean, in my book, Get Selfish, The Ways Through, that was my whole journey of that realization that I was continually trying to pour from an empty cup,
yeah,
wondering why I was feeling so burnout, wondering why I was always kind of struggling and always in the struggle. And it was because my cup was completely empty. And and which is why I ended up sick and tired and
yeah,
tired and sick. Um, and I think there's such a correlation. I don't know if you've seen this in your work, Eileen, but I feel like there's such a correlation between that overgiving, the people pleasing, and the lack of boundaries in women's health.
mm,
Like I see that a lot. Like a lot of people who overgive tend to end up with different types of illnesses. And usually they're things like autoimmune,
yeah,
things that are more long term.
yeah,
But if you look at the pattern of overgiving and if you look at the pattern of people pleasing, it's usually been long term as well.
mm, yeah,
You find that
definitely.
yourself.
Oh yeah, yeah, absolutely. I've seen it. I'm thankfully very healthy, but I think I could have gone that way. But I've seen it in other people definitely that yeah, and it gets very mixed up and very messy and very murky because you don't know why are you doing the overgiving? Is there something in you that is it you are you filling a need, that you need to be needed? So I had to explore all that as well. Am I doing this because I feel I need to be needed?
Yeah, I think there is always, like, when there's overgiving, there's always an unmet need that you were trying to meet. Um, Sometimes it's done from a place of safety.
Yeah.
We feel that it's not safe to say no.
Mm.
So we always say yes,
Yeah.
aka equals overgiving. Sometimes it's because we are being fed by the action of overgiving. So in that case, it's we like the fact that other people need us.
Yeah.
So we feed it. And that's an unmet need of usually filled perfectly with self-love. If we can get to that place of loving ourselves, we find that our need for being needed disappears. And along with it, so does the overgiving and the people pleasing, which is such a sweet relief.
Mm.
But I think one of the biggest is habit because we watch somebody else close to us, like our mothers or our aunts or our grandmothers,
Mm.
do exactly the same thing.
Yep. Definitely.
And it became our normal. It became like, this is normal. This is what women do.
Yeah.
Here's how they behave. This is it.
Very
And
true.
yeah. Tell us, that you joined the $1 million experiment. Tell us a little bit about your journey in the $1 million experiment. What kind of things came up for you, if you can remember? I mean, I know you're in it this year as well,
Yeah.
but what
Yeah.
what things came up for you in that first year? Was there like any like moments of like what I call a come to Jesus moment where you're like, holy moly?
Well, there was lots of why am I not a fucking millionaire yet? And then the come to Jesus moment was, oh yeah, I can't be a millionaire. I don't have the right mindset to be a millionaire. If somebody gave me $1 million tomorrow, it'd be gone the next day because I don't have the capacity to hold on to it or to use it correctly. Maybe that's not the right term, but to embrace it. I don't have the capacity. I don't think I deserve it enough. I'd give it away, which I've done before until I've had money. I'd spend it on stupid things. I'd invest it in stupid things. And I've done all this before. So I knew that if I wanted to have $1 million or any amount of decent amount of money, I had to fix me first. I was like a leaky bucket. So that was the come to Jesus moment, I suppose. You have to fix the container before you can have $1 million.
Oh my God. That is just such gold. And it's so true, right?
Yeah,
It's so true.
yeah,
It's like One of the teachings from Skylar that I really appreciate is I appreciate them all, and in a way it's so funny because I often say, well, this is one of my favorites, and I realize they're all my favorites because they're all
Right.
so good. But what I realized is that your container is always maxed. That was one of Skylar's teachings that really opened my eyes. Like, the universe is always giving, and therefore you are always receiving.
Mhm.
And if you want more, it is you that has to expand your container.
Yeah.
And that was huge for me, of realizing the universe loves me so much that it's always giving, and I'm always at capacity for what I can hold. If I want more, I need to be the one that expands to accept more, because the universe has all the more that I've ever desired, and the universe is going to give me all of that more that I desire. I just need to have the capacity for it to hold it. And I realized that it was all that what I call gnarly thinking. It was all that my deservability. Did I feel like I deserved a million? Or it was all of those thoughts, the beliefs that created those blocks they basically took up the room where more could live.
Yeah.
And realizing, and in a way, for me, what happened is things just got really simple instead of more complex. Things just got a lot more simple, and I just realized, okay, the universe is always giving, so my results are out there. I'm going to receive them. All I need to do is make sure I have the space for them.
Yeah.
And it was such a beautiful moment of realizing that, and doing then the inner work to create the space, to create the room, to hold that, to hold the energy of it, but also to be able to hold the energy and honor the energy at the same time,
Yeah.
right? I think the real test is, can we receive in a million and not touch it?
Mm.
Because I know that that sounds such a weird thing to
Yeah.
say. Could we receive a million and not touch it? And that is the ultimate space that we have then created for a million. Just as well, for us, money likes to flow.
Yeah.
So you don't have
Yeah.
to urge it and hang
Yeah.
on to it. But tell us, what made you decide to kind of go deeper into our teachings? Because you went into LightWeb next.
Yeah.
A lot of people, um, in your position when you first joined Million Dollar, where, that was a struggle. A lot of people really look at like the business side of things and think, I'm going to need the strategy, I'm going to need this. But you'd already come to that level of consciousness of like, actually, I need the healing.
Yeah. Exactly. I needed the healing. Yeah. That's why I came to LightWeb next, because yeah, I think when maybe $1 million showed up, the holes in the bucket, and I needed to heal them. And
Yeah,
I'm still on that, in that process.
beautiful, beautiful. And do you know what I love about this process is that this process isn't what I call a kind of like, with the teachings, that Skylar's teachings, they're not like a one and done,
Yeah.
right?
Yeah.
Like, you'll apply some of them and you'll get those results and you'll start to feel better and you'll start to heal. But then you realize that there's always, like, you can always reapply those teachings again and again and again. And I mean, like, I'm still seeing things in the teachings that I didn't notice when I first downloaded them or first began teaching them. Like, I'm always noticing a new level to these teachings, and I'm very excited. At the time of recording this podcast, we're about to enter a new LightWeb season, which is always really exciting. Tell us what your first experience was of LightWeb. What came up for you in that course, or what did it reveal for you?
It just felt so nice to be with people who were like me, because I haven't had that since I was a child, really, forever. But just people who were speaking the same language and thinking the same way and weren't afraid of their spirituality.
Beautiful. So it
Yeah.
gave you a deep sense of belonging, which is
Belonging,
really
yeah, and
lovely.
validation in some way that you're not mad. There are other people, And actually more and more at the moment, I'm seeing more and more people who are kind of becoming aware of their own source, who they are.
Their own magic, their own
Yeah,
uniqueness.
yeah,
It's amazing, isn't it?
their own
It's
essence.
beautiful. And one of the things that Skylar teaches us through LightWeb is that when we heal, we become walking portals for others to heal. We literally contain the codes, we literally contain the frequencies and the vibrations for other people to do that work. And it's so amazing how that's like we're really hearing that in your story of like how people are really popping up around you that are matching the vibration. They're like, oh, I've got this too, or and you're able to help them and lead them, which is beautiful.
Yeah.
Tell us, your next journey was to jump into divine planning, abundant profits. You've not been in there very long.
Yeah.
What has been your experience so far of that?
Yeah, that I find it that difficult because I'm not a business person, and this is a business one. But at the same time, it's structured in such a way that it's quite simple to follow. So I can see that if I just follow those steps, that I'll get there. I'll do it. But it is challenging to put on a business head. But
It's
yeah,
necessary.
hmm? But
It's necessary.
absolutely
Yeah.
necessary. Yeah. Yeah, it's another step forward, and into something that I don't know very well. I just hope that I could just manifest $1 million out of thin air.
Well, we can manifest $1
Yeah,
million out of thin air
yeah,
because I've actually had clients that's done that. But what I always say is we need a container for it to go.
yeah,
And a business is a wonderful container for
yeah,
$1 million to go, right? It has the capacity to hold it. It has the capacity. If we can create a business that allows us to create $1 million, and that means that there's a few things that we need to consider in that journey. We need to consider, first of all, what I call the deliverables. Can we actually deliver the capacity, right, that holds 1 million? So if the answer is no, then we need to change our business model to one that will fit the ability where we have the ability without being stressed, without being in hustle mode to deliver the deliverables of what it would look like to make $1 million. So for instance, this is where I love playing with numbers. When I first came to the realization that if you had a $2,000 course, for instance, and you sold it to 500 people, you would make 1 million. And that was huge for me. Because I was just like, wow.
yeah,
And there it was, right? And realizing when you put it in the context of how many people use Facebook, for instance, it's just under the number is just under 2 billion people have a Facebook account on
yeah,
this planet. Of the 8 billion people on this planet, 2 billion of them have a Facebook account. And if you have a Facebook account, you potentially have access to that vast number of folk, and you need 500 to say yes to a $2,000 offer.
yeah,
And it's not even, saying yes, and that's your benefit. You make the million. But the benefit is that there's 500 people who are willing to change their lives,
yeah,
who are willing to, if you charge more for your product or your program, for instance, the price, the numbers go down and it becomes even more. You start to realize like, wow, it is actually not as far. And that's one of the things that I love about was that a surprise to you, the $1 million plan, where we turn that €1 or
yeah,
$1? I know you're in euros. So that €1, and we keep doubling it, and we end up with in 20 steps 1
yeah,
million.
yeah. That's incredible how close it is. Like it's how simple it is as well. It's just to the increments. As you said, the law of increments. The fact that it multiplies so quickly. When you get beyond a certain amount, it just the jumps are huge.
Brilliant. I
Yeah, but
love that.
I think the reason I wanted to join Deepak is I have so much amazing content, and I know that I can transform the world from the inside out, and I want to share it. And I can't do it without some kind of a business structure. So that's what I'm doing at the moment. But I will be slow going through it because it's not my forte. But I
But
will.
that's okay.
Yeah,
I
that
mean,
is
that's
okay.
the wonderful thing with lifetime access.
Yes, yeah,
It took me a lot, and I want to be really upfront with anybody listening to this podcast. It took me 8 years to build my complete product suite,
yeah,
like 8 years. And I think a lot of people think you've got to build it in a couple of months and then that's it. And no, I took my time and it wasn't that I was stony broke in 8 years. I took my time and each year just got that little bit better and that little bit better and that little bit better. And I just refined what I was doing. And I think this is one of the things, again, in society, we have this pressure that we need to do it quick. One of the things that Skylar taught me was if we're building a business that's worthy of you, it's such a beautiful statement.
yeah,
If you are building a business that is worthy of you, not you worthy of it, but the business that you're building is worthy of you, as in you are a unique being, you are a one of a kind on a planet of 8 billion. Does that not endeavor worth taking its time to do it? Not do it right, because I don't really believe in the
yeah,
perfection of things. I always believe that we get, but to do it well, to do
mm,
it in a way that you're proud of the work that you've done for your business and you're proud of how you're conducting oneself in that business. And I think that helped me immensely to kind of woe my horses that I was in any type of rush to build my business. I think for me, what was so beautiful was I want to build a business that's worthy of me. And
yeah,
I think I realized it was a profound act of self-love to pause, contemplate, take time, choose what felt really right for me, as opposed to this will do and throw it in and chuck it in and hustle.
yeah. I felt the need to hustle um, because I had a big issue with time because I'm now 69 years old, so I'm nearly 70, and I kept thinking I don't have much time left to do this. But I've decided that it's irrelevant. As much as it will get done, as much as it needs to get done. Um, and I've taken the pressure off myself of having to do it in a certain time frame. And if
Talk
I
us through
happen to,
that. What did
Mhm.
that look like, taking that pressure off? Because I encounter this with so
Yeah,
many clients, the pressure, and it's real. And it leaves that horrible, desperate feeling in the pit of your stomach,
yeah,
like of like feeling like you have to just crank it out.
yeah,
So tell us what your process was like of beginning to like wake up to actually, this is a pressure I don't need.
yeah. I think of I worked with the coach before who was all about hustle and funnels and it's trying to keep up with her. It nearly killed me. It really did. I just couldn't do it, and I felt like such a failure. Um, and then I think I don't. There wasn't one single moment that I could say, okay, this is what happened when I decided to take the pressure off myself. But I just realized, and I suppose there was extra pressure as well because the lady, the Liz, my friend who introduced me to you, died suddenly and had so much incredible content that's just sitting at home still on her desk. Um, so that was putting pressure on me. I said, what if I suddenly don't wake up one morning, I get hit by a bus? Um, what's going to happen to this? And then I suppose the realization was that's not my issue. That all I have to do is put in the work and put it out there as best I can. And if it gets out there, it does and it's meant to. And if it doesn't, then somebody else will pick it up. The message, there aren't that many different messages. There's just different ways of saying the same message. We're all saying the same thing, that we are all um, powerful source beings of light. That's what we're all saying.
Yes.
And that everybody's saying it in a different way.
Hmm.
Even if my message doesn't get out there in my lifetime, somebody else will pick it up. It's like the 100th monkey thing, I suppose, and the building momentum. It's all adding to it. So yeah, I don't know. I just came to that. I just eased up on myself one day and said, okay, oh, I know what did it. Um, I listened to an interview with Michael Caine where when he was in drama school, um, something happened when he was in a play and somebody blocked a door he was supposed to come through or something like that. And the teacher said to him, you have to use the difficulty. So the difficulty that I have is time. So I'm going to, or it's age. So I'm going to try find a way to use that difficulty somehow. I don't know how I'm going to do it yet, but that phrase, use the difficulty, kind of said, oh yeah, okay, it's time is a difficulty. How can I make that work for me?
I love that. I
Yeah,
love that. And I can see many, many times where I have used the difficulty.
yeah,
I can actually see that now. I'd never heard about that interview before, but
yeah.
I can see now where I've used that. I can tell you, actually, I want to share a story with you guys on the podcast, and I want to share a story with you as well, Eileen. So my very first 10K month, I had been trying for this 10K month for quite some time, and it was elusive. And it was December. And I was sitting having coffee with my mum, and it was around about the 2nd or 3rd of December. So it was right at the beginning of the month. And nothing had really kind of happened in that month sales wise. And I was a bit worried because obviously Christmas was coming up. So I was thinking, what will I do? What will I what am I going to like? What am I going to put out? What's my kind of product going to be really? What's my offer going to be? And I was sitting speaking to my mum, and I was saying to her, and I was just kind of like trying to spitball ideas. And my mum starts saying, well, it's December, Joanna, and people don't have money, and people don't have money to spend, and they don't have they're saving all their money for Christmas, and things like that. And she started spitting out all of this stuff, right? As though it was fact, as though it was thing. And I realized I had this kind of out of body experience. And I was kind of like looking at the two of us having this conversation and realizing that the rhetoric that was coming out of my mum's mouth was the rhetoric that was in my brain. And I realized it wasn't even mine. It was my mother's. It was this idea because her experience and my experience up until that point had always been that Christmas was a burden, that it was this financial thing that you could not spend money because everything was going towards the perfect
Yeah.
Christmas. And I realized it was a rhetoric, and I thought this is BS because there's like millionaires in this world and they've always got money. Like they do not experience life at this level of consciousness where they have to scrimp and save for Christmas. That had been my experience. That had been my mother's experience. But that is not the only experience available in this world. And so I thought, okay, and I thought about everything that I hated about Christmas, the difficulty, right?
Yeah.
The drama of months and months and months of preparation or prep, buying lots and lots of lovely things for others, wondering when it was going to be your turn,
Yeah.
maybe knowing that you might not get the same thought and care in return, right? So I listed the difficulty, I listed the pain, and I turned that pain and that difficulty that I listed in my journal into my sales copy. And at the time I had a course called Get Selfish, the journey. And it was really like the journey of the book. And part of that course is really now part of Unity course that I teach. And I put that out and I said, are you fed up of trying to do everything for everyone? Are you fed up of people pleasing and trying to create this perfect Christmas? And you're wondering when it gets to be your time. And then I listed all the benefits of my course of learning. And that month, I did not have a 10K month. I had $13,500. It was my first ever 10K
Oh,
cross, and I well crossed it. And it was amazing. And it really, really showed me. And it was such a powerful moment for me because I'd lived in the consciousness of nobody has money at Christmas.
mm,
And yet I was able to make $13,500. So I blew that belief completely up and
yeah,
was just like, no, that's rubbish. There's people who have money all the time. And I realized it was such a huge moment. So I love this advice of like, use your difficulty, because I realized that had been my difficulty.
yeah,
It was, and I was there, I was telling the story of my difficulty. And I think when you look at your difficulty, um, as a gift, Skylar teaches that there's always a gift in everything,
yeah,
and if you're willing to look for it, you will find it. And, and there I was, and like, I literally, the gods of copywriting gave me the best copy, and the people that signed up for that first course of that, they were like, oh my God, this spoke to me so much. Like, it was like you were in my head. And I'm like, girl, I was in
yeah,
my own head.
yeah,
I was telling all of those stories myself, and I was able to really connect with my audience in such a powerful way. And I know that if time is your thing, I know that the audience that you will begin to attract in will perhaps be
yeah,
the women who feel that time pressure,
yeah,
and they know, and you'll be able to accurately describe it to them because you've
yeah,
lived it.
yeah. That's what I think. Yeah,
Yeah, it's
so I
it's
kind of
crazy.
realized
I mean, my brain is, we're gonna have a wee chat after this podcast, and my
that.
brain is literally spitting ideas right now of wonderful ways that you can use that. And it is, and I think so many people feel that pressure. I mean, I've had people who come into my world in their 30s and they're like, oh, it's all over. And I'm
Yeah,
like, what? You are literally not even, they're like, but I'm 39. I'm like,
yeah,
wow.
yeah,
And that's not to make light of somebody else's pain, really, but like, so I think age and time is something that is so twisted
mm,
in our society in a way. And we don't celebrate, although time is an illusion, is what Skylar
yeah,
teaches, really is an illusionary state of being. But we don't celebrate it either, like, and I think what's really beautiful is that the fact that at any age that we're still willing to try, that we're still willing to, that it's not over till it's over,
yeah,
right? That's one of Skylar's lovely sayings, it's not over till it's over. So it's like, yeah, it's true. It's like I've committed to this journey of like, as long as there's breath in my lungs, I will keep teaching. I
yeah,
will keep sharing this knowledge. And it's not over till it's over. And it's like, and I've got so many ideas and so many things, and it's very easy to get pulled into that and then feel like I don't have enough time to get all this done,
yeah,
which is such an egoic state of being. But you taking that pressure off. One of the things that when I decided around the $1 million year that I wanted to I took time out of the equation. So I said, okay, is $1 million a year a goal worthy of me? Instead of, am I worthy of it, the goal, but is the goal itself? Is it juicy enough? Is it worthy of me? And I thought, yeah, it is worthy of me. And I thought, okay, if that goal is worthy of me, then who cares how long it takes?
yeah,
And because if it's really worthy of me, then it's okay if it takes a day, and it's okay if it takes 100 days, and it's totally okay if it takes 10 years,
mm,
because if the goal is worthy of me, it's okay, whatever it is. So then making that, like, having that in my mind, I took time out of the equation, because I was like, okay, I'm not going to give any more attention to time because it'll just take as long as it takes. And I'm just going to keep chipping away at this goal because I can only do what I can do in the time that I have. So, but the goal is worthy of me, and that was the first piece that I needed to check. And I thought, well, the goal is worthy of me, so let's go. And who cares how long it takes? And what I did in that moment was collapse the field of time. because time was no longer part of the
Yeah.
equation, results just sped up exponentially for me. And it was really quite extraordinary. So I'm very excited to hear that you have begun the process of removing time.
Moving time. Yeah.
Because it's true, like, and the thing is, it's that, Skylar has this beautiful visual that they give me. They give me a visual of a lift in the lobby, and next to the lift is a staircase. I think so many of us are looking for a lift pass. And now you can't enter the lift unless you've got a lift pass. But we stand on the ground floor and we're like, am I going to get one of these lift passes any moment?
Yeah.
But right there is the freaking stairs.
Mm.
But you're standing on the lobby and you're standing on the ground floor and you're like, am I just going to get this lift pass and it's going to give me this boost and it's going to get me closer to my goal like
Yeah.
really fast. And the thing is, when Skylar told me they only give out the lift passes on the stairs of life. And I thought, how simple is it? I don't need to see the whole staircase, cliche,
Yeah.
but I just need to see the next step and I can take the next one and the next one and the next one. But as I'm climbing, there is going to be some friendly person that will give me a lift pass. And those lift passes, rare as they may be, they are given out on the stairs of life. And I've experienced it many times. I remember the first time that I really, truly experienced a lift pass. I had done a live event in my local town. It had been attended by a lovely family. It was mother, daughter, and a father had all come. The father entered the room with very close body language because he had he,
Like there
he
was
was the driver for the night.
Yeah.
But it was an event that I call Live Life Unlimited, and it was about the power of your thought and the power of really creating your reality with your mind. And by the end of it, the whole family came up and gave me a huge big hug. And they all said, like, and even the father, he was so excited. He was just like, wow, that was amazing. Like, never expected this. Like, I thought I was going to be bored to tears. And he said, this was phenomenal. Thank you, thank you, thank you. What I didn't know was that the woman wrote a blog that she had, I think it was over 20,000 or 30,000 people on her social media. So in her enthusiasm, she shared that, and it was a witchy blog, so it was my ideal clients.
Yeah.
It was all spiritual people in there, and so she shared, and I woke up to over 300 new followers overnight. That's a lift
Yeah.
pass.
Yeah.
That's a lift pass. And sometimes, but had I not gone out and done that seminar, had I not gone out and been willing to put myself out there, been willing to climb the stairs of life and just do and if I'd waited for the Albert Hall,
Yeah.
right, I would have been sat waiting for a very, very long time. But instead I did Little Tulloch Castle and I had about 25 people there and that was enough. But that gave me a lift pass. And some of those people that found me through her ended up as clients,
Yeah.
and again another boost. And so it's funny, isn't it, that
Mhm.
we sit there and we wait for that lift pass and
Yeah.
we can wait for a long time
Yeah.
for it. But when we just start getting on the stairs, things begin happening.
Yeah. Definitely. I love that analogy, the picture of the stairs and the lift.
Yeah, you can really see it, can't you? I
Yeah.
don't know how Skylar does it, but every time that they give me one of these images, they're so holographic. It's like everybody can kind of almost imagine it and see
Yeah.
it. They're like, okay, I'm standing on the ground floor.
Yeah.
Which one will I take? And it's like, it's obvious. You got to take the stairs.
Yeah.
Like, um, and and it's that just that one foot in front of the other. Eileen, we could probably chat forever because we
Yeah.
have very similar interests. I always say that
Yes.
that is a sign of my ideal client. Would we get kicked out of a restaurant? Not through misbehavior, but because the waiter is pointing to his watch
Yes.
saying we're closing now.
Yep.
And I always feel like that's my litmus test for an ideal client. Would
Yeah.
we get chucked out of a restaurant? I always think about that. I always think, and I think me and you could quite easily be called to time in a
Yes,
restaurant.
I think so.
And
Yeah.
we've lost track of time and we're just enjoying the chat so much.
Yeah.
Tell people, Eileen, where they can find you on the interwebs. Where can they find you on the internet? And tell people, yeah, where they can find you. So where are you?
I just changed the name of my Facebook group, so I got to go look it up. It's called Me Power again, on Facebook. It's a private Facebook group, nice little community. And then I have a Facebook page as well, Eileen Bennett, and I'm Instagram is under Eileen C. Bennett.
Beautiful. Okay.
So you'll find me.
We'll make sure we'll pop those links below so that people can
Great.
find you easily. And if you are looking for some me power, or if you are looking for a retreat or something really special, working with horses, and especially if you can be there in person in the Galway area, then Eileen is your lady. Thank you so much for joining us
You're
today,
most
Eileen.
welcome. Thank you for having me.